Hello everyone, Carlos here. Welcome to what's up in archaeology. I'm starting this new series where basically I will, apart from Monday, the other days of the week, only the weekdays, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, I will choose a different period or a different subject in archaeology and just an article. And not like in my Mondays programs, which will be either the news of what's been discovered or an in-depth analysis of a certain poignant subject. Now, hello everyone. Hello Archaeonomy, John the Bemused, Levi, my friend, and Warped. How are you, dear? Tuesdays will be basically Neanderthals. So I'm going to choose Tuesdays to talk about Neanderthals as I have a lot of material on them. And the other days of the week, I'll see what I can do. Tomorrow, I'll think of something for tomorrow's video. It'll be earlier than my Monday program, and it'll be shorter than my Monday's program. So today's Neanderthal and Neanderthal Tuesday. So we're going to talk about Neanderthals. I have an article by in this is the article I'm going to quote. I'm going to discuss, but I have in the description Carl Zimmer. So, yes, I will use newspapers and etc. to talk about them, but I will usually include the actual study so we know where we're at. Anyway, let's get started. Neanderthal DNA, there's a sign of a mysterious human Neanderthal that was discovered in Hollenstein-Stadel, a great city, right? Now, let's get into the actual article. With fossils, by the way, can you guys hear me? I'll wait until the answer. Do you guys hear me well? Am I the quality all right? And I'm not showing. God, my internet's a bit. Yeah, I know. My internet's a bit fucked up, so I'm going to turn off one of my streams. So I think it should be better. There's too many connections in my house and around me. So how's it now? Any better? Sometimes. Yeah, I understood. I saw the actual stream that I was independently looking at, and it was buffering. Oh well, I'll just pursue the article anyway. I'll talk slower. So with fossils and DNA, scientists are piecing together a picture of humanity's beginning, an origin story with more twists than anything we could find in a movie theater. Judging by today's movies, that's not hard to do. Today's movies are crap. And just action and explosions and all that shit. But I digress. Consensus now is that Homo sapiens evolved around 350,000 years ago. Yes, I talked about that in the past stream, which I was so excited. I found in northern Morocco, northern Africa, elements, fossils from us, from humans, Homo sapiens, of around that dated between 250 to 350,000 years. So it pushed our lineage 100,000 years back in time, which is awesome. Now, only much later, roughly 70,000 years ago, did a small group of Africans establish themselves in other continents. Africans is talking about Homo sapiens, giving rise to other populations of people today. us. Now, Johannes Krauss, he's the director of the Max Planck Institute of Human History in Germany, the top genetic paleogeneticists in the world. All samples go to this place to get analyzed, to get the data. The gap seems peculiar. Why did people not leave Africa before? He was asked in an interview. After all, he observed that the continents were physically linked to the Near East. You should have just walked out. Well, there are many due to climate change during those periods. It's not as easy as it sounds, but of course you could walk over. There's no actual physical barrier except for deserts, lack of water, etc., and game and food and so on. In a study published on Tuesday, this newspaper article was published on the 4th of July, this 4th of July, America's Independence Day, Yankee Doodle Doo, and so on. In Nature Communications, I have the article itself in the description, the actual study. So have a read, have a gander. And reported his colleagues that Africans did indeed walk out some 270,000 years ago. Based on newly discovered DNA in fossils, the researchers conclude that a wave of early Homo sapiens sapiens in this case, or close relatives to our species, basically us, made it from Africa to Europe, where they interbred with the Neanderthals. Right. Then the ancient African migrants, the ancient Homo sapiens, the first wave, disappeared, but some of their DNA endured to later generations of Neanderthal, sorry. This is now a comprehensive picture, Dr. Krauss says. It brings everything together. Of course it does, because it's just one more little bit of the puzzle that is clarifying our early our ancestry, our tree of life, our lineage, etc. Complex. It's getting better. It's getting more nuanced. It's just not simplified. And I hate the simplifications. I like complexes, because we are complex people. We are complex. We are in a complex species, subspecies, in fact, Homo sapiens sapiens. That is a clue towards racial classifications. We are Homo sapiens sapiens. The end. There's nothing below. There's no subdivision of Homo sapiens sapiens. Now, since the 1800s, paleontologists have struggled to understand how Neanderthals are related to us. Well, by then they didn't have DNA tests, they didn't have etc., etc. But the fossils show that they were anatomically distinct, yes, with heavy brow, a stout body, and a number of subtle features that we lack, obviously. The older bones of Neanderthal-like individuals found in a Spanish cave called Cima de los Huesos. This place is super famous. It has a complete lineage of fossils from our direct ancestor Homo, which is most likely Homo heidelbergensis, Homo sapiens, Homo sapiens neanderthalensis. It goes back to 500,000 years back, so more to 2 million years back, to even to Homo erectus, if I'm not mistaken. I think I've covered that. That's Cima de los Huesos. Just answering something from Malafis. So it's possible that modern Homo sapiens sapiens were more northern based compared to Neanderthals, thus explaining our difference in bodies. Northern to what, Malafis? That I don't understand. Northern to what geographical area? They were. Answer while I continue reading. If you can hear me well. Yes, there is more Neanderthal DNA in Europeans than any other humans. I have 3.5% Neanderthal DNA. I did the genetic test in 1991 when National Geographics were making the genome program, which mapped the whole genetic or many peoples of the whole Earth, basically. So yes. Now, geographically, but again, geographically to what? Geographically in Africa or Europe? Forget you not. Neanderthals before Homo sapiens arrived in Africa were in Europe, so they are north of Africa, and they came in from the southeast, and they spread to Europe, of course. So no, that's not very true. They would have been there's in Africa. We have reasons. We have data that they were all over Africa. Us Homo sapiens. We found the oldest in North Africa, Morocco, and we have some not so far, about 100,000 years ago in South Africa. And it's you can see that how big Africa is, and it's not that much of distance, basically. But let's get back to the article, and then I'll answer this quickly at the end. I will scroll, so don't worry about that. 40,000 years ago is, of course, around 40,000 years ago. The Neanderthals went extinct around that period. They lasted until about 35-ish in Gibraltar, and in Portugal there are some even earlier or later sites, interbreeding sites. One of them is the Lapedo child, which is related to about 28,000 years ago. He's a hybrid. That's not the right word. They were not hybrids. No worries, Malafis. They're not hybrids. The Lapedo child. He's a mixed race. The correct classification of the Lapedo child is a mixed race child. He's part Neanderthal and part Homo sapiens, or part Homo sapiens neanderthalensis and part Homo sapiens sapiens. That is a mixed race child, and that's settled. So as a graduate, Dr. Krauss as a graduate student in the mid-2000s, damn, he's young. He traveled to museums drilling bits in Neanderthal bones. He extracted a lot of DNA from many sites across Europe, because Neanderthals are vastly spread from Portugal all the way to Siberia. Here's some old the excavations of Hollenstein Stadel in 1937. The excavation of that cave, just a picture. But you can have a look at your own ledger. The actual articles much more in depth than I'm going to do here. Now, the scientists who studied the ancient genes searched for two kinds of genetic material. The vast majority of our genes are in a pouch in a pouch in each cells. This is mitochondrial DNA called the nucleus. They extracted the mitochondrial DNA. You can see that this is a newspaper. There are two types of DNA. Of course there is. There's the mitochondrial DNA and there's the nucleotidic DNA, the nucleus DNA. This one from the nucleus, which inherited the so-called, no, it's not so-called. It is the nuclear DNA from both parents, because mitochondrial DNA is from the mother only. It's a little bit of information. We also carry a small amount of DNA in the fuel generating factory cells called mitochondria. Yes, they get it right. Anyway, we inherit mitochondrial DNA only from our mothers, because father sperm destroys our own mitochondrial DNA during fertilization because of mitosis, not meiosis. The XY chromosomes. I know the minimum, so I won't get into much detail on how fertilization occurs. That's more biology. But first year biology, year 8 biology, you learn that meiosis, mitosis, etc., etc. So they extracted they extracted both the mitochondrial DNA, Dr. Krauss, and nuclear DNA, and then they analyzed them, and the genes had some surprises. For example, bits of DNA in living peoples of non-African ancestry come from Neanderthals. I am one. And of my genetic makeup comes from their Neanderthals. While modern humans expanded out of Africa, they were also interbred several times with Neanderthals. Now, this study shows that. Before, we thought there was only once, around the 60, 70,000 years ago, when the wave that we thought was unique entered Europe and coincided with the decline of the Neanderthals. So those children became part of human society, passing on their genes, obviously. But a finger bone and a tooth from a Siberian cave called Denisovia left Dr. Krauss and his colleague a baffling puzzle. He's describing the Denisovians. They are not the same. A unique species or cousin of ours, a race of humans, Homo sapiens. They're so new, people, that they haven't yet decided on how they're going to be classified, whether it's going to be Denisovans or Altaiensis, Homo sapiens Altaiensis from the cave in the Altai region of Siberia, or the cave or the name Homo sapiens Denisovians. It still hasn't been settled. Thank you, Levi. I'm not a very good teacher. I don't have much patience for brats. Sorry, man. So they found that they managed to recover the nuclear DNA from the Denisovans finger bone that showed that Denisovans and Neanderthals were more closely related to each other. Yes, okay, that's fine. No. They would have split from the ancestor Homo ancestor, most likely Homo heidelbergensis, as we did, but they did it in Eurasia, while we split in not split. We split in Africa, Homo sapiens sapiens. The scientists found that ancient DNA in more fossil. Our history is coming to sharp focus. Of course, scientists now estimate that the common ancestor of modern humans, Neanderthals and Denisovians, lived between 760,000 and 550,000 years ago, coinciding with Homo heidelbergensis. Around 445,000 to 473,000 years ago, common ancestors descended, split into two lineages. One eventually led to modern humans, and the other led to Homo Neanderthal and Denisovans. Again, yes, but it's beginning. It's close. It's not completely yet. It's not a complete factual, settled argument yet. The theory hasn't been established, but we are very, very close to establishing that. The more evidence we find, we will establish this point that our ancestor most likely, and I'm stating my position and my position alone, is that there's four actually that I will talk about soon again. I will cover that again. The Andaman Islanders in Papua New Guinea, they have the DNA that does not correspond to Neanderthals or Denisovians. So there's four, and we will find that fourth hominin. So Dr. Krauss still did not understand why the nuclear DNA and the mitochondrial DNA of Neanderthal seems to have different histories, because one was mother and father. The former pointed out to a link with Denisovians and the later to humans. So the mitochondrial DNA, the mothers, passed on the genes that were more closely related had more expression of Homo sapiens sapiens, while the nuclear DNA had more expressions that were more linked to the Denisovans. That's quite, that's normal. So here's another entrance, cave entrance, modern picture taken, Steinstadel Cave. I'm getting better at pronouncing the German names. It must be the beer I'm drinking. I'm drinking a, by the way, an English barley wine. It's fucking nice. Local craft beer, by the way. Let's continue. The mystery only deepened in 2013 when another team of researchers retrieved mitochondrial DNA from a Neanderthal-like fossil in Cima de los Huesos dating back 430,000 years ago. That is so very, very close. 130,000 years is so very, very close to the split, or to the Homo ancestor, evolving into Homo Neanderthal, Homo sapiens neanderthalensis. It's very, very close, as I showed you before, the dates. The researchers expected that the DNA resembled that the later Neanderthals in Europe, and instead the mitochondrial DNA looked more like it belonged to the Denisovans. Yes, because they were closer. Again, the actual study clarifies this, but the author of this piece, he still doesn't very much understand. He talks about it, but he forgets what he wrote about it. So, well, instead the mitochondrial DNA, of course, at that time the mitochondrial DNA belonged to the Denisovans. Even though the Denisovan cave is about 4,000 miles away. That means that Homo ancestor and these early Neanderthals, Denisovans, being very, very close together, both the nuclear and the mitochondrial DNA would have been much, much closer related. Now, we continue. The researchers announced that they'd gathered a small fraction of nuclear DNA from the same similar fossil. The genetic material looked like it belonged to a Neanderthal and not a Denisovan. This clears it out. But Dr. Krauss and his colleagues now have discovered that Neanderthal DNA that they believe have this genetic mismatch. Basically, Dr. Krauss' graduate student Cosimo Post examined the Neanderthal fossil from the German cave in Hollenstein-Stadel. He was able to reconstruct all of the mitochondrial DNA. Dr. Posh estimated that the DNA fossil was about 120,000 years ago, and more importantly, belonged to a branch of Neanderthal family tree with a long history. Yes, he and his colleagues determined that all known Neanderthals inherited their mitochondrial DNA from the ancestor who lived 270,000 years ago. So they were able to gather most or lots of samples, and then they analyzed them, and from about 100 to the earlier Cima de los Huesos sample, which is close to 430,000 years ago, they were one sort of, they were unique, that they were closer to they had no outside influence. So the Denisovans and Neanderthals evolved from a common ancestor up until around 270,000 years ago, where an unknown type of DNA was found in the mitochondrial DNA. So this data pointed to a sequence of events that could solve the puzzle that bewildered Dr. Krauss for so long. The common ancestor and Denisovans spread across Europe and Asia more than 500,000 years ago. Gradually, the eastern and western population parted ways, of course, genetically speaking. One became Denisovans, one became Neanderthals. And this was true up until 430,000 years ago. In Cima de los Huesos, the Neanderthals they were still in that part of the very close. The distinction was very meager. But some point around 270,000 years ago, African humans closely related to us moved into Europe and interbred with the Neanderthals, and their DNA entered into Neanderthal gene pool. Over many generations, many of the new DNA disappeared. It's natural. As we continue to breed, many of our genetic material gets diluted, and some even gets displaced, etc. That's just normal. Oh, hello, Mama. Yes, you did, honey. Enjoy the show. I still got a little bit to read, so I still got about 25. As soon as I finish reading, I will stop, by the way, because this is mainly just for you. This is very a short, succinct crash course or information type thing that I'm trying out, see how it goes. So let's get back to the reading. So where was I? Many generations, most of the DNA disappeared, but mitochondrial DNA survives because it's passed down from the mothers to their children. In fact, eventually all of the DNA, all of the Neanderthals inherited it for some reason, discarding the mitochondrial DNA that the species once had. It's normal. If the mother is the line that places the mitochondrial DNA, then that's normal. I've mentioned this before, but I think I might need to have another refresher program about this. Humans and Homo sapiens sapiens. I'll summarize it into humans, us, and Neanderthals, us, our cousins. There is a problem with the mating, and it's basically this: the male Neanderthal and a female us don't produce very viable offspring, but a male us and a female Neanderthal produce viable offspring because there is something with the X chromosome that the Y chromosome. I'm sorry, the Y chromosome that inhibits viable offsprings between the two admixings. So I've mentioned that before. I'll redo that just in case. And that's one of the possible reasons why the mitochondrial DNA survived where the nuclear DNA didn't. So you said that it's possible that early members of our species moved from North Africa into Europe, supporting his idea newly discovered last month. I talked about that. I was so excited with this discovery. God, I was excited. Dating back 300,000 years ago. And Dr. Posh said it was too soon to rule out another possibility, that these migrants belong to another species in Africa closely related to us that scientists have yet to document. Yes! This author from the New York Times got this right. Yes, he included that. We don't know. And it is exciting that we don't know. This is awesome that we don't know. That's a possibility. The more we study, the more it becomes clear. This is awesome. Beautiful. Dr. Posh says, I feel uncomfortable to give the name to these humans. Of course, he shouldn't give the name to these humans. We don't know them yet, if they are Homo sapiens sapiens, us, or if they are another species. But from all the data, that the article that the actual study says, they are very, very, it's almost, it's not inconclusive, but God damn, it's so close to being us. And yes, damn, this is exciting. Adam Spiel, a geneticist of Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory of Long Island, who was not involved in the new study, said that hypothesis fits the evidence. I think that that's an absolute that it's possible. Yes, that's the scientific method at work. He was not involved. He got samples. He did the study independently, and it came You got the same results. That's what it is. That's what it's exciting. So the new study raises a host of tantalizing implications about human history. It just makes it bloody more clear, which is awesome. It is not possible to know how many times these early Africans interbred with Neanderthals, but somehow, somewhere in prehistory, at least one female human from Africa must have carried a child of a male Neanderthal. I would say the opposite, because I already explained that male Neanderthals and female us, the Y chromosome is a bit of it. There's a study that it's sort of impedes it. It's not very viable. But on the opposite, male Neanderthals and male us and female Neanderthals is completely viable, and that is why we possibly interbred some other way. But that is just my possibility, or even I'll revise what I just said, because they were so closely related then. This is 300,000 ish years ago. That Y chromosome barrier would not have been as oh God, what's that word? As impeding as it would be later. We now our second wave of movement into Africa, us humans, Homo sapiens, that it would have been possibly that the Y chromosome would have worked. So a male Neanderthal and a female human, us would have been much more viable. Yes, I correct to this last information which I just said. Now, now we have this hybrid child. It's not a hybrid child, it's a mixed race child. Come on, guys. Come on, article. This is what true mixed race is, not the made up one that we have today, which is probably pretty unusually looking. No, why would it be unusually looking? He would have had, even early Homo sapiens had a little bit. He would just had a chin, and possibly be taller. My friend, this is almost over, man. I know it'll be over, so etc. It's a short program. I hope you like it, Modwan. So going back to this, the hybrid, they would not be pretty unusual. They would have been very normal looking, possibly a bit taller than the Neanderthals. He would have probably had a chin. That's what distinguishes both Neanderthal. We don't know how Denis Ovens look like, so we can't speculate on that. One way or another, the mixed race individual was absorbed into Neanderthal society. Yes, he was absorbed. He was normal. It was natural. There's nothing. This is a bit sensational. Sepal, possibly, yeah, whatever. Dr. Sepal warned that hypothesis hinges on the new DNA found in a Hollenstein study. Dr. Kruss and his colleagues are now trying to retrieve nuclear DNA from that fossil. Research at Cima de los Huesos shows just how far back in time scientists can now reach with genes. Today I just received some new studies which I downloaded PDF, which is with free, no bloody paywalls and that, on the far eastern hominins between 270 and 350,000 years ago. We'll cover that this week. Why hang on to it? I have to get rid of the backbone of the backlog of articles, and so I'm doing this as methodically as I can, maintaining the Monday special, which will last longer, etc. So Getting back to this research, go back, yes, they have revealed that DNA might come from the mountains of Morocco. These scientists may be able to find genes from the earliest Homo sapiens, which can be then compared to Homo sapiens neanderthalensis. There are things that I never thought possible 5 years ago, Dr. Krauss said. There are things I would never thought possible 2 years ago. These 2 years to me and as an archaeologist just has blown my mind. I've learned that we have found Homo naledi, Homo sapiens denisovans. We have found the oldest oldest fossils of our lineage, Homo sapiens sapiens, and now that we had an earlier migration into Europe. And it's not just, as this article sort of implies, it's not one individual. He would have been enough of a population to actually leave the mark. So I've ended the article, and I think just to get back, if you guys want to ask a bit of a question, Q and answer. How did you guys like this? Did the sound come out right, by the way? Oh, thank you, social scapegoat. Did the sound come out okay? Because I had earlier problems with the sound. Probably most likely it will be in the once it comes out. Once it finishes the program, it'll be okay. So no further questions. Let's see. Tomorrow, I have a few things. Let's see what I have in my. I have. I could do no. I could do something of the Bronze Age, but I have some Bronze Age, or I could do some comparative archaeologist, or I could continue, because yesterday I just did 2 parts on Göbekli Tepe. I talked about who possibly built it, how was it built, but there's a third component which I forgot to mention: their belief system, and I have an article on that from the actual guys that did that. Oh yes. Thursday, I might do something about the American archaeology, the Mesoamerica, Andes, North America, etc. I have some good stuff. Do you think the infertile hybrid thing is why they don't look at the Y chromosome DNA? Well, it's very difficult to look at the Y chromosome. Well, once they look at they analyze the nuclear DNA, which obviously has both the X and Y chromosomes. And yes, Carlos David, skull worship. But answering archaeonomy, the I will cover that, and then trying to I have the article, so I will talk about that next Tuesday. On next Tuesday's what's Neanderthal Tuesdays, why Neanderthals and humans were hard at breeding together, especially the later ones, because we see from the studies that this earlier mixing was quite easier than later. So let's see. No, the modern humans came from Africa, Tom Fink. It's established. It's a fact, mate. So, hello, Tokamators. How are you, my friend? No, no, Maleficent, I don't get triggered because I don't get triggered by incorrections. It's a fact that we came from Africa. It's nothing to do with we were kings and shite. It's just how it happens. Um, there was no Africa then. There was no Europe. There was no Eurasia. These are agricultural. Um, no worries, Tom. That was cool, mate. I never get triggered anyway. But yeah, just to explain that geography a, uh, is a it arose from our studies, of course, and from agriculture. And many of my friends know it's yes, yes, Maleficent. I know it was a joke. Uh, but I didn't go overboard. I don't go overboard. So people, I love you all. I'm going to stop it now. I'll try and keep these to 30 minutes this week, except for the Monday one, but the weekdays ones. I don't do any on weekends at all. I'll listen. But same time tomorrow, I'll see what I can bring up to you guys to become entertained with, because this was okay. This is quite nice, and I love Neanderthal. So every Tuesday, Neanderthal Tuesday, and I'll see if I can make John the Bemused. That is a very correct. That is a very true and factual statement you just said. Geography is a social construct. So guys, love you all. Thank you for coming on, and see you tomorrow. Bye.